Well, good morning, everybody, and I hope your weekend is starting off well here. This past week I was in South Dakota, and I got paid one of the highest compliments about my work I've ever received in my career. A guy told me that the stuff I put out here in these morning reports is some of the best bathroom reading content he's ever seen. So have a seat, light a candle, and let's sit back and dig into all of this today. First things first, Climate Prediction Center did release their newest long-range outlook, and that's what we're going to look at first. This is the August, September, October forecast. Now, in the report, I'll kind of detail why it looks like this, but a lot of this is based on historical analogs for the quite strong La Nina we're still experiencing. In addition to that, the dynamical model support from the National Multi-Model Ensemble, which I linked and you can take a look at. So I'll just make this comment. I think that all late summer and fall forecasts are going to have very low confidence to them, mainly due to the recent shifts in the North Pacific with the jet stream and the fact that we're starting this hurricane season. So we need to be aware that this is a time of year where model forecasts are often quite low in terms of skill scores. So what's changed across the Pacific Ocean? We've seen a lot of heat coming into the North Pacific while we still maintain the very strong trade winds here across the Central Pacific. The Indian Ocean dipole is also sending some very strong winds in this direction, giving us better rising motion here. But the fact that the jet streams move farther to the north and we've lost that trough feature in the Gulf of Alaska is really influencing this pattern. But lower wind shear and warm conditions continuing in the main development region are going to give us, I think, just increased risk moving forward with tropical cyclones. Plus, it's climatologically consistent. Beginning of August through the middle of September, that's when the season really ramps up toward its peak. So we just need to be aware that we're in that time of year. Over the next 10 days, I do want to keep an eye on some potential low pressure development coming off the west coast of Africa that could move across the open Atlantic, but that's it. We still have quite a bit of dry and dusty air in place here we're going to have to overcome. So let's watch it, see if anything evolves. National Hurricane Center at this point is not really discussing much of this. It's just showing up in some of the models. So kind of the big story deals with the changes we'll likely see in this map over the coming 10 to 15 days, because over the last 30, as we've discussed in such great detail the last couple weeks, the extent of the drought in the southern plains and mid-south and then pockets throughout the Corn Belt, the Great Lakes getting into the northeast is quite extensive. And we're going to be seeing changes really happening in the west as well with increased heat risk moving forward. The latest drought monitor, which was released yesterday, is shown here. But what I want to do is I'm going to come in quickly and show you the latest change just in the last week. So we saw continued degradation happening right here between Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Arkansas, pockets throughout the plains, including the spot in Minnesota, but some improvement in parts of the eastern and central Corn Belt and in the southeast, just something to take note of there. Now, I also included the month-to-date precipitation stats for you to have a quick look at today, just to continue to put some context to the month of July. But it's the temperatures that have just been incredible. Much of Texas having a top 5 hottest July on record, and we have more heat that's coming into this area now. But the biggest change that we've been discussing this week is found here in the upper level height pattern. You see, once we move out through the weekend and into early next week, we seem to be developing two rather dominant troughs, one in the Bering Sea, another one here over the Hudson Bay, and that's allowing for a lot of ridging to be taking place right here. So what this ends up doing is takes all the heat to the west, sweeps fronts through this section of North America, and that really starts to increase the chances for seeing better precipitation. So just a quick summary here of the next 7 days. I pulled this out of my report this morning. We can see the change in the position of the jet stream from the next 3 days to day 4 through 7. See the ridge building here. That takes the heat back to the west, and that opens up these fronts to come slicing through, delivering quite a bit of precipitation. And just in the last 24 hours, you've seen some really heavy rain that's come out of here in parts of the southeast and continue to have better storms over the Red River Valley of the south. Heading a little bit farther north, though, parts of North Dakota yesterday, severe storms ripped through here, producing some hail. We saw strong straight-line wind damage that stretched from New England through the mid-Atlantic and down into the southeast, over 300 reports there. Now, as we go forward, just looking at the severe weather risk, I'm going to take you to Saturday. This is the day I'm most concerned about. There's a shortwave coming out of Washington, one that's coming out of the Canadian Prairie. They're going to meet quite a bit of unstable air here, and there's just risk right here on this, kind of centered on the Mississippi River between Wisconsin, Iowa, northern Illinois, and Minnesota. So let's keep an eye on this on Saturday. latest model guidance, there's a couple of neat things to show you here. So the storms last night that came through parts of the southeast, they moved toward the Gulf of Mexico. See that? But then just keep an eye down here. There is the chance that throughout the day today, we could see what we call a mesoscale vortex forming out of this. It's in the high resolution rapid refresh model. It's in the NAM. I'm going to have to watch that carefully down there in Mississippi and Alabama. But some significant changes. Models backed off on the risk of storms rolling through here. Tonight, it's not that it's gone, but they've just taken further to the north, as you notice here. And then going into the day on Saturday, these will be the complexes of storms we're going to keep an eye on, sweeping through Minnesota and Wisconsin and Iowa. Now, the models have always had the greatest risk on being possibly some straight line wind damage, so we'll keep an eye out on that. That's tomorrow night, this area. Just please be keeping a close eye on the radar. Okay, next 7 days, though, it's kind of summed up right here. Models continue to really increase the chances of having some heavier rain, especially in this area, but they've also increased the chances for more storms here on these weak fronts that kind of sag through the midsection of the country. And the European model shows you what's going on. So real quick, just watch all of the lows. They'll come out of Canada and they'll just sweep up into this Hudson Trough. And what they do is they just leave these fronts, like here's Sunday, getting into Monday. See them here? And these fronts just keep sliding through. And eventually, next week, we expect them to push far enough to the south that we could be bringing some drought relief into parts of the Mid-South that desperately need it. So this is next Friday as I play through. See how that front continues to sag as higher pressure builds in. So that just means we've increased the chances of seeing above average precipitation. Here's the probability of an inch of rain over the next 10 days. So highest in and around the Ohio River. But notice we've extended this area back into some very dry areas here where we have better chances of seeing above average rainfall. Today's main risk is going to be heat. Once again, down here in the central United States and also New England. Red flag warning stretch from Idaho into parts of Wyoming and western parts of South Dakota, and excessive heat down here in the desert southwest. And those high temperatures today, again, 103 in St. Louis. I've been focusing on that. It's very hot there. And then tomorrow, that's the scorcher. But notice the cooler air coming in. That's what's going to initiate the storms in the upper Midwest. That's coming in behind that front. There's Sunday's highs. Look at the heat building into New England. And then after this, we're going to suppress that heat farther to the south in the southern plains, and then watch the temperatures crank next week here in the the northwest, 103 in Yakima on Tuesday. So that's where the heat's going to go. And so you see it stays in the southern plains, but really starts to build 106 Fahrenheit here. And we're concerned about that risk of heat staying there as we look at this 5-day sliding window of temperatures with that ridge building in the Gulf of Alaska. You start the month of August off quite hot here in the Pacific Northwest, while we've kind of eliminated the risk of high heat here in the northern plains getting through the Midwest. And that just lasts until we get about the 3rd, 4th of the month. And then the model spread starts to bring in some warmer conditions once again. But again, anything beyond about day 10 right now, I don't have a lot of confidence in because I need to see where that ridge ends up going in the just off the Pacific Northwest. But in the report, I do include the latest stress degree day map. Read about it, and you'll see where we're concerned about exceeding that limit of 140 stress degree days based on Elwyn Taylor's research. And as we discussed, the heat's really going to start to move into the Pacific Northwest, and the CPC is really identifying this area as excessive heat. The risk is quite high at the end of the month, and that's just trended warmer all week. Finally, at the end of the report, take a look at the new Ecmwf Outlook, and also watch the in-depth video for some details on this. Hey, have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you again on Monday morning. Thanks.